Cannibal Holocaust has amassed a reputation over the years, citing itself as the most controversial film ever made. And whether or not that's true is up for debate, but it is undoubtedly a controversial film, not only critically, but morally and ethically too. When I dove into this movie, I honestly expected just an over the top gore fest, something adjacent to a slasher, because that's all that it makes itself out to be. It doesn't try to own the fact that it has a message to it, at least not on the outside. But when you dig beneath the shocking images, it's definitely trying to say something. But what does it actually have to say? If you haven't seen Cannibal Holocaust, I'll give you a brief summary with spoilers about how the movie goes so you can understand the video. So we start by learning about a group of filmmakers who go deep into the Amazon rainforest to film a documentary about a tribe of indigenous people who are known to be cannibals. We start the movie focused on the leader of a search party for these filmmakers who went missing. He eventually finds the tribe of people, the remains of the film crew, and the footage that was made before their demise. We meet some executives who say that this documentary needs to be released as it would be immensely profitable. And from then on, we pretty much just watch the found footage and see that this film crew did much more than observe, and they would go through horrible acts adjacent to colonialism against these indigenous people just to get shots that would frame them as more savage than they are. By the end of this movie, we have seen this crew do horrible, horrible things to these innocent people. And finally, they lose their power and get overtaken by the tribe, and murdered and eaten alive. After we see this footage, it cuts back to the executives finally agreeing not to release it for an uncomfortable ending to the movie. The biggest redeeming factor of Cannibal Holocaust to me is that it certainly has a lot to say, on the surface level at least, about colonialism and how we as a society have treated indigenous people in the past. It brings up tough topics, particularly for the time it was made, although that's a debatable topic in of itself though. An example of this were westerns throughout the early 70s that portrayed indigenous people as heroes instead of villains, like Little Big Man and Billy Jack. Still though, topics like these tended to be ignored historically and pushed out of mainstream media. So there is certainly an argument that Cannibal Holocaust is pushing a very good message to try and open the eyes of viewers who might not have thought that way before. To go along with this, the side plot, aside from the found footage parts, explore and tackle themes of greed and capitalism. The executives behind releasing the footage discovered some of the horrible truths and actions that the film crew went through to get a lot of these shots, and still decided that the film should be released. It wasn't until the end of the footage that the executives saw the film crew assault and murder a young innocent indigenous woman who was part of the tribe, and that was when they finally reached their limit to not release the film. The message of this film is not hidden whatsoever. The main character says it out loud multiple times, especially at the end of the movie when he says it word for word pretty much. But how much of that message is taken away when you look at the creation itself of the movie? Probably the most shocking and well-known part of Cannibal Holocaust was the horrific animal cruelty that went on during filming. There are 6 scenes of animals being tortured and murdered, but 7 animals were killed for the making of this movie because they had to reshoot a scene with a monkey being beheaded twice. The scenes of animal cruelty are long and drawn out and very upsetting to watch. Many times they feel unnecessary to the plot and they're just there for shock value. There is definitely some sort of nuance here though, as when you look at other Italian cannibal films of the time, animal cruelty was kind of just a common practice for this style of movie. But just like your mom said, like, if your friends all jumped off a bridge, would you do it too? I don't believe that just because it was common makes it okay, especially whenever the film is tackling a topic like this. The American Humane Society was the group that made the slogan, "No animals were harmed" during the filming of this movie. They started overseeing movies in the 30s, so almost 50 years before Cannibal Holocaust was released. Of course, Cannibal Holocaust was filmed not in America, so the American Humane Society probably doesn't have a ton to do with it. However, this was a worldwide phenomenon in the late 30s as the UK launched an act to protect animals, and they agreed not to distribute any films that featured animal cruelty. If Cannibal Holocaust was made in the late 30s or early 40s, maybe this could be excused for that reason. But it's almost 50 years after we as a society decided that animal cruelty was not okay for movies. The actors and actresses also had a major issue with the animal cruelty. In an interview with Carl York, the actor for the main guy on the film crew, he says this.
I said, are you actually going to kill this monkey on camera? And he said, yeah. And I said, but this is the movies. You don't have to do that. And he said, yeah, right, but we're in the Amazon.
Now, there is not only the evidence that there was a societal pressure for the film crew to have morals and empathy for the animals, but even people on the set were telling them about how awful this was. York even said that actors on the set were throwing up during this time because of how unfortunate and disgusting it was to see this animal cruelty happening in real time. Whenever one of the animals are killed, there's a scene where the girl on the film crew throws up, and there is a major rumor saying that that wasn't written in the script and it was just intentional. To continue with this theme, the actors and actresses were treated awfully on the set. Carl York claimed that there were no SAG representatives on the set at any time during filming, and it was just the film crew and the actors and actresses. He talked about how unsafe he felt and how he had no idea where this could go. If they had brutally murdered a monkey in this way, who was next? If the animal cruelty wasn't fake, then why would the human cruelty be fake? York later in the interview talked about his experience with being forced to shoot a pig, and he declined. And either way, the pig was still shot, just by someone else. And if you want to check out that interview, I'll leave a link in the description. You should definitely give it a watch. It's only about an hour long, and it's a very interesting insight into the making of this movie. Debatably, though, the indigenous people got it the worst. They were not compensated monetarily at all. They were not credited at the end of the film. They were just fed lunch every day, and that was that. This alone should be enough to show that the indigenous people were exploited, just like the movie was trying to call out. But if that's not enough, they were subjected to extremely dangerous filming situations as well. The scene with the hut burning is probably the most well-known example of this. And if you don't know, there is a scene where the film crew goes and burns down one of the native people's hut. And during the filming, the indigenous people were forced to stay inside of the hut as it was burning down. Fortunately, no one was killed in this stunt. No one was injured as far as recorded. But that does not prevent the danger of unsafely having a fire stunt. The last thing I want to bring up is the young girl who is assaulted and impaled. And you've seen the picture. We've all seen the picture. It's the poster for most releases of this movie. Before she's impaled, there's an extremely long and drawn out scene of the entire film crew assaulting her sexually. It's uncomfortable for the viewers to watch. It's uncomfortable for the actors to do. And obviously, it's debatable about whether or not this scene should be in the movie. Many people will tell you that it helps you fully understand the horrors of what was happening and the horrors of colonialism. But others will tell you that it was unnecessary and disgusting to watch. The main issue that I have with this scene, though, is in that same interview, we can see that York said that the indigenous people really couldn't tell what was going on. They didn't have movies in their society, and they weren't sure what was real and what was fake, particularly because of that animal cruelty again. There's a rumor that the actress that was assaulted and impaled was a minor, under 18, and a teenager. Whether or not this is true, I'm not sure. But regardless, she is very obviously a younger woman who was forced to strip down naked and go through the motions of being assaulted on camera. Now, a teenage girl stripped naked and put into the actions of a rape scene is just not okay, no matter what way you look at it. It is exploitative and humiliating and disgusting overall. And whenever you consider the fact that she couldn't even speak English to tell anyone to stop, it just makes this scene so much harder to watch. I think that all of these things that I just mentioned make it very obvious that Cannibal Holocaust is extremely exploitative to not only the indigenous people, but the entire film crew and even innocent animals related to the project. So, does the exploitative nature of Cannibal Holocaust take away its message about that very same thing? When is the line drawn between becoming what you're trying to call out? The lack of empathy for the indigenous people makes the movie feel half-assed in its message. And it really just doesn't make a lot of sense that you can care about something so deeply to make a movie about it, but not practice what you preach during the filming of that movie. It really just makes you wonder what this movie could have looked like if it had practiced those same morals and was created ethically under safe conditions. As much as I may have made it seem like I hate this movie, I wouldn't say I despise it. I hate the way it was created, I hate the exploitative nature of it, but the film itself still has something important to say that I think is something we all need to hear. I wouldn't call it a necessary watch for anyone, but it does have its moments that it shines. It goes where a lot of films wouldn't dare to go, and it feels undeniably very, very real. The effects hold up much better than most movies of the time, and they all look very, very real, especially when you pit that up against the digital effects of the late 2000s and early 2010s. And just like any other Italian film from the 70s or 80s, it does have a great soundtrack, which is entirely unrelated to this video, but I just had to put it out there. So, if this video somehow made you want to watch Cannibal Holocaust, just think about it before you monetarily support the people behind it.